Wow, cookies you can eat? My favorite.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom, and recently Book 4 of Infinity Train was announced, reigniting the buzz around the show that never really died down, right HBO Max? But the topic has come up on how Infinity Train, just because it's a cartoon, isn't necessarily made for kids, which to me draws attention to the fact there's a clear distinction between children's animation and adult animation, or at least there has been traditionally. But there's a bit of an irony in how adult animation, despite trying to tackle more mature topics and appeal to older audiences, has a habit of falling back on edgy humor that appeals more to preteens and adolescents than it does to actual adults. There are of course exceptions like Futurama, The Simpsons. To this day, King of the Hill is one of my favorite cartoons, but even in those cases, there's not an experience of revisiting those shows as I get older and having them resonate differently. It's more a case of those shows had enough substance and lore that I only grew to appreciate their quality more and more as I got older. Something that can also be said for a lot of children's cartoons if we're being honest. And one children's cartoon that did manage to resonate with me differently as I got older was Regular Show. I watched Regular Show as it aired, and as a teenager it was entertaining, but that was about it. Then a few years later, as I was transitioning into adulthood, I binged the series and it was a completely different show to me. It was portraying a reality that I genuinely wasn't old enough to understand when I first watched it. And that's a quality that is carried over to the current project of Regular Show creator J.G. Quintel in Close Enough. The show has edgier jokes and some darker moments that might not be appropriate for a kid's show, but that's not the extent of what makes it appeal to an older audience. There is a certain quality which makes it feel like it's a cartoon made for adults more than a rite of passage into adult media, the way Family Guy and South Park were for me and many others. That quality I think is mostly relatability. I love King of the Hill, but I'm not a propane salesman in Texas obsessing over lawn care. I'm not a nuclear family man who works 9 to 5, then turns to alcohol to avoid his paternal responsibilities. Nor do I obsess over being a standard or example of masculinity. Nor have I given up my life for my family. Nor do I ever really intend to. There are so many adult cartoons that work to satirize and poke fun at the American dream, but few that try to reach out to the audience on a consistent level. When I watched Regular Show, I was a young adult who was working but also lazy and wanted to play video games and drink soda. Actual soda, because I don't drink, roast me in the comments, but it was the same vibe. Seeing how Mordecai and Rigby were navigating their relationships and friendships and the changes in their lives was very relatable to where I was at in my life. And now watching Close Enough, even though I'm not in my 30s with a kid, with roommates, this is where my brain is at. Oh, to be divorced in LA, playing guitar, living in a simulation, trying to get more Instagram followers, and eating cookies that are edible. It is a mindset. And the reason I feel like this is more present universally for a cartoon like Close Enough than a cartoon like Family Guy is because the joke of Family Guy tends to be on the characters. Most adult cartoons tend to be full-on satirical of reality itself. Or they're like Rick and Morty, full-on nihilistic of everything and everyone that the show presents. Most adult cartoons tend to be very cynical of the world and degrading towards the characters that there's very little to truly connect with in a positive way. So I ask myself, why did I relate to Mordecai and Rigby? Because they were going through the things that I was going through and struggling in the same ways I was struggling. Why do I relate to Josh, Emily, Bridget, Randy, and Alex? Because they are facing struggles that I'm struggling with in my adult life. Josh is struggling with balancing his youthful interests and hobbies with his responsibilities as an adult. Emily is learning to stop beating herself up for setting boundaries and not bending over backwards to help a toxic friend who is taking advantage of her. Bridget is self-reflecting to realize her own insecurities have led to her own unhealthy and harmful habits in her relationships. Randy wants to feel like he actually contributes to the people around him and is respected for what he has to offer. And Alex is looking back at how his relationship with Bridget played out, how that affected where he is now, and accepting that to move on. Even though the characters get made fun of and the ridiculousness of situations are not lost on the voice of the show, the characters still feel respected by the text. They get the slack to screw up and make mistakes in order to figure things out, which again carries over from Regular Show, where even though the characters were flawed, they grew. The message in adult animation tends to be, yeah, adults are stupid too, and the reason that this actually does matter and has value is to acknowledge the misconception that you're going to figure everything out adult once you're an adult. There are definitely plenty of Peter Griffins, Homer Simpsons, Stan Smiths, or Randy Marshes in the world who are really, really dumb even though they are well into adulthood. And even someone like Hank Hill, who is a lot more competent and fits the idea of your typical adult, is often the butt of the joke for being stuck in his ways, stubborn, and overly reliant on tradition, and using that to form his entire worldview. In fact, I'll fully acknowledge how there are times where this aspect of Hank or other characters in King of the Hill can flip from being comedic to actually being really tragic and impactful on a moment's notice. Then Rick and Morty slightly deviates from this by making main characters that are on the outside of society looking in, giving more of an everyone is stupid but I'm less stupid point of view. But the problem ultimately with these characters is there are less humans who happen to act on their own ignorance and more characters who are embodied by ignorance, and that leads to flanderization. Close enough doesn't make their characters stupid, they are people who happen to do stupid things. The protagonists are treated the same way children's cartoons treat their protagonists, as characters who have some sense of identity but are far from figuring things out and are still in the process of learning about themselves and the world around them. The characters have space to do stupid things without that being their entire identity, which makes them much more sympathetic and relatable. But most importantly, it acknowledges that you're not going to have everything figured out once you reach adulthood. You're still going to make mistakes and screw up, and that's okay. That doesn't make you a bad parent, it doesn't make you a bad person, as long as at the end of the day, you are trying your best and have the right intentions. Which is a level of charity and lightheartedness that most adult animation lacks. But in a world that's already very depressing and cynical, I think this is exactly the attitude we need from stories made for adults. But as always, I want to hear from you guys. How do you feel about this? Let me know in the comments down below, or you can find me across the web at TommyPQM on Twitter and Instagram, and on Fridays and Saturdays on Twitch. But you can also find us at Roundtable Vids on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like, share it with your friends, and if you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Roundtable and hit the bell to never miss a video. Shout out to all our patrons supporting us on Patreon. As always, my name is Sam. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. See ya!